It's time for football, and that means we're talking sports. Horse racing, greyhound racing, and sports betting with your host, Kip Keefer. Don't just watch the action. Get out to Birmingham Greyhound Racing and put a bet on it. Here are today's tips and strategies to help you get in the winning game. Now here's Kip Keefer.
Oh yeah, we're talking sports. It's Saturday morning. Happy New Year, everybody. Hope everybody's celebration was outstanding and most importantly, safe to get your 2020 off to a great start. 2020, can you believe that? Hard to imagine that we've reached this decade, a brand new decade, I should say. Welcome to the program. I'm Kip Keefer. Going to have a quick report today on everything you need to know to get up to date on what's happening in college football and tell you all about our chief sponsor of the program, Birmingham Greyhound Racing. You can get out there today for a fabulous experience. You can watch the races live, the Greyhounds on the track, starting this afternoon at 2 o'clock. They'll be cranking it up again at 7:15 tonight. And we've got simulcasting from all around the country, all the best Greyhound and horse tracks. It's a great time of year for racing because we start a brand new season, a whole new campaign. We start seeing the 3-year-olds who will try and distinguish themselves to make that first Saturday in May a reality in Louisville, Kentucky. The Kentucky Derby coming up. Hopefully this year it won't be run underwater and won't have judges interfering with the result, but we'll get into that subject matter as things unfold. We also have a lot of other entertainment out at Birmingham Greyhound Racing, including some spectacular new gaming opportunities on our gaming floor. The machines are very popular. We got a whole bunch more coming in soon for expansion. So far, it's been just a phenomenal success, and everybody's enjoying that. 24/7, 365, the gaming floor open at Birmingham Greyhound Racing. And, of course, we also have, to tie right in with our program, the fabulous Sports Parlay Card Contest. You can get in on the game Vegas-style, purchase track goods and services. You get points that then you can select your games. And if you win, you're rewarded with a wagering voucher that you can utilize for cashing in or for other bets. So the Parlay Card Contest, the closest thing to the Vegas sports betting experience that you can get this side of the Mississippi. It's available today at Birmingham Greyhound Racing. So get on out there and check out the track. Like we say, it's time to get back to the track. All right, let's get into some football because that's what everybody tunes in to talk about. We witnessed on this past, I've got to say last Saturday, I've got to get my days straight here. It doesn't seem like it was a whole week ago. But last Saturday, it was the college football playoffs, the semifinal games. Let's start with the first one that was over in Atlanta. Clemson, 63. That's right. Not Clemson. LSU, 63. And Oklahoma, 28. Tigers just battered the Sooners. We told you here on the show last week with the fantastic co-host Terry Quillian that I said there's good news and bad news for Oklahoma. The good news is I think they'll be able to score a lot of points. Jalen Hurts is going to be a problem to contain for the LSU defense. 28, that was a pretty good prediction. But I said the bad news is they're going to give up a lot of points to Joe Burrow and LSU. But I didn't even imagine 63 for the Tigers. Did you watch the first half of that game? Joe Burrow threw not 5, not 6, but 7 touchdown passes before halftime. It was absolutely absurd. It was like playing and watching a video game. He wound up with another touchdown throw in the second half, so he had 8 for the game. In a semifinal college football playoff against allegedly the 4th best team in the country, to throw 8 touchdown passes is just beyond all comprehension. This is the Heisman Trophy winner, Joe Burrow, who won by the largest margin in the voting for the Heisman of any player in history. And you talk about backing up that award. My goodness, what a performance that was as LSU just blew away the badly overmatched Oklahoma Sooners. What a great win for Coach Ed Orgeron. This is a guy that when he was elevated to the job. LSU had interviewed 3 or 4 candidates that they wanted instead. They finally settled for Coach O, and the decision has been outstanding because this is a guy who is in the right place at the right time. He's an absolute cultural fit at LSU. He loves the university and the job. It's the area for where he's from. And man, what a great success story that is. For Oklahoma, gosh, the defense is just horrendous. And Oklahoma's been in the playoff now 4 out of 5 years, and they've been ousted every time. The Sooners really need to get back to the drawing board, and the committee needs to start to understand that, you know, you have to look at the teams you play and the teams you beat. Oklahoma's resume not that great, and boy, were they ever exposed last Saturday. Now, Saturday evening, we saw the best game of the day, of course. It was Ohio State and Clemson. The Tigers win their 29th straight game. They subdue Ohio State after trailing 16-0. They end up winning the ball game by a score of 29-23. Just a fantastic game. Trevor Lawrence, a long run after Ohio State made a terrible mistake and roughed the kicker on a punt. The Buckeyes fans are complaining about a lot of calls in the game. The officials took it away from them. They're chiefly disgusted by the call that the catch and fumble by a Clemson receiver that Ohio State picked up and ran in for a touchdown was overturned and called incomplete. But if you watch the game, LeMunyon, the rules official, the official on staff, called that play before the people on the field, so it wasn't a big surprise. Anyway, we got to go to break. We're going to talk more about the championship game in a few minutes. Back with more right after this. And we're back. Talking sports, Kip Keefer on this Saturday morning. Hope you're having a fantastic first weekend of 2020. Every time I say that, it's just kind of like amazing. We're talking sports here. We just reviewed briefly the 2 playoff games. We'll talk more about those in our next segment. But I want to focus on the primary subject of interest here in Alabama, and that, of course, is the Tide and the Tigers. Before we get to that, I got to tell you this segment is sponsored by Kimco, and they are a great company, family-owned, ready to step in and help you with anything you need done in your business, your plant, your office. Kimco is just a legendary company that gets the job done every time, no matter what it is. I like to call them the business equivalent of the Swiss Army knife. They can step in and help you in any way necessary. Kimco, give them a call for any business or office need that you have. An outstanding sponsor here on Talking Sports. Let me get a little adjustment here, and we'll move on to the Alabama and Auburn stories. They both played on Wednesday, New Year's Day, bowl games. We talked about on the show last week that Auburn really kind of got the second-class treatment, not only being passed over for the Citrus Bowl, which is the higher-level bowl, but also having to play at exactly the same time as Alabama and Michigan. So Auburn kind of got pushed back into obscurity where they really didn't deserve to be. They beat Alabama and were ranked higher, but I'm pretty certain that when you see the ratings nationally for this duo of games, that the Alabama ratings will be considerable because of the much-hyped matchup between Nick Saban and Jim Harbaugh. And let's face it, storied programs in college football history playing for just the 5th time ever. Alabama and Michigan had not played in 20 years. And it's not surprising. The last time they played, guess how Alabama lost? A missed extra point. How many years, how much longer is Alabama going to be plagued by terrible kicking? It goes back a lot longer than even recent memory. But Alabama atoned for that yesterday. And let me say publicly, thank you, Alabama. Thank you so much for beating Michigan. And because you talk about Big Ten fans being insufferable, if the Wolverines win that game yesterday, all we would be hearing is how the Big Ten has surpassed the SEC. It's such a relief to see Alabama, depleted as they are with injuries and several guys who chose not to play because of their NFL status coming up. It was great to see Alabama gather themselves after kind of not a very impressive first half and take charge of that game and really dominate Michigan in the second half, take away everything that they were successful in doing in the first half. Jerry Jeudy, what a fantastic career. Fully expect that that's the last time we'll see him in an Alabama uniform. The very first play of the game, 85-yard bomb from Mac Jones for a touchdown, and props to Steve Sarkisian and the Alabama consulting staff because they figured out a way to position Jeudy to get a one-on-one matchup on the very first snap on offense with a freshman safety for Michigan, and that was an absolute mismatch. Jeudy ran right by him, an 85-yard strike, and it was a great way to set the tone for the game. What a great career Jerry Jeudy had, and look no further than next year in the NFL. Fantasy football players, a quick tip. Even though Judy's going to be a rookie, he's going to be an impact guy from day one. So congratulations to him for having such a showcase game, and Alabama knocking off Michigan, doing us all a favor. Jim Harbaugh, not my favorite individual, and anytime that cocky Jim can be knocked down another peg, it's a great day for college football fans. Michigan now has abysmal record against top 10 teams in the Harbaugh status, and he's now lost 4 straight bowl games and he's only won 5 of the 12 that he's ever coached in. So great win for Alabama. Congratulations to the Tide, atoning for a disappointing effort against Auburn in their last game. Now on to the Tigers down in Tampa. Very disappointing loss yesterday, I thought. I think Auburn has better personnel. We knew the Auburn offense is still a work in progress with freshman Bo Nix, but I think the biggest indicator of what's wrong with Auburn right now offensively is that Nix completed 17 passes to 19 for Minnesota's quarterback Morgan, but the Minnesota quarterback threw for 278 yards. Bo Nix's 17 completions were only for 179. So you're not throwing the ball down the field. They're not making big plays in the passing game. And we knew the running game was suspect already. So Auburn has a lot of work to do on offense. But the biggest disappointment yesterday was the Auburn defense. Minnesota's offense has not been ultra productive this year. They've been solid, but Minnesota had more success against Auburn than just about any team this year, and you really kind of have to stop and wonder why that was. Auburn's defense had a tough game against Alabama, gave up a lot of big plays, and did so again yesterday against the Golden Gophers. So after a fantastic year for the Tigers defensively, the last 2 games, something had gone haywire, and it's disappointing. As I mentioned, I never like to see an SEC team lose to a Big Ten team. So Gus, who came into the game just riding high for the first time in a long time after he outcoached Nick Saban in the Iron Bowl, Auburn does not come back with a good effort and follow that up. So it's the frustration, I guess, of being a Tiger fan under the Gus Malzahn era. We're going to have more coming back here. We're going to empty the notebook of things going on in college football. Stay right where you are. Welcome back, everybody. Talking sports. Kip Keefer handling the duties here on this Saturday morning. Hope you're having a great first weekend of the season. And we are winding down the college football year. We're going to talk about the college football playoff championship game a week from Monday on the 13th. But we're going to empty the notebook here of some thoughts that I have on the bowl games and the bowl season. And before we do that, I need to tell you that this segment is sponsored by Craneworks. And Craneworks, if you drive around downtown, you see all kinds of projects and building and these giant pieces of equipment. They're just awe-inspiring to look at. Chances are those came from Craneworks, one of the best companies in the heavy equipment industry in not only the state of Alabama, but in the whole nation. Craneworks has an outstanding, stellar reputation. They also have equipment needs for everything you require, big or small. Give them a call today. A great supporter of sports in Alabama for many, many years. The Upton family and Craneworks do an outstanding job. All right, let's empty the notebook and talk first in general about bowl season. One of the things I was most astounded by, do you remember how razor-thin close Utah, the Utes were to making the college football playoff field. They were upset in the Pac-12 championship game by Oregon, and when Georgia lost to LSU, if Utah would have found a way to win that game, they would have been in the 4th spot instead of Oklahoma. But Oregon handily defeated Utah, who, in retrospect, and I guess it's easy to look back now, but we were saying it all along, that Utah did not have any quality wins over anybody that was ranked, and still just maintained that lofty perch and came within an eyelash of being in the playoff. Oregon did us a favor and knocked them out, and then we saw probably the most surprising bowl result of the weekend when Texas, in the Alamo Bowl on New Year's Eve, just drilled Utah 38-10. Now, in all fairness, like other examples in recent years, Auburn against UCF a couple of years ago in the Peach Bowl, Georgia last year against Texas in the Sugar, when you come so close to making the playoff and you get knocked out, I guess it's hard motivation-wise to get ready to play a seemingly, you won't want to call it a meaningless bowl, but it certainly doesn't have the impact of being in the playoff. Utah was not ready to play and got blown out. That was a little bit surprising. The Pac-12 overall has a problem. The conference just isn't very strong, and the committee needs to make note of that. Yesterday, actually it was on Wednesday, in the Rose Bowl, Wisconsin from the Big Ten lost to a Pac-12 team, which is Oregon, the champion of the league, but really they lost to themselves. They made a couple of critical mistakes in the second half. Did you see the play where the Wisconsin punter literally dropped the ball before he made the kick, just dropped it on the ground? An Oregon guy picked it up with one hand and rumbled into the end zone for a touchdown. And then the critical turnover in the final minutes of the game, Davis, the running back for Wisconsin, coughed it up. It set up Herbert, the quarterback for Oregon's winning touchdown scamper, 28-27. So that was a big win for the Pac-12, but it was really more Wisconsin beating itself. The Pac-12 overall strength is just not very good, and the same can be said, as I mentioned earlier, about the Big 12. The committee needs to start considering the fact that these leagues just aren't very good right now, and until they reestablish themselves, you can't be politically correct and be ranking those teams ahead of SEC teams and Big Ten teams that have lost to each other, because those teams, it's pretty much proven, are stronger than those other conferences. And the ACC, we don't even need to talk about. It's Clemson and the 13 dwarfs, because the ACC is just awful. Let's talk about the SEC performance in the bowls. I mentioned Alabama, a real gut check, gritty performance to win their game. That was awesome. Georgia did the same thing against Baylor in the Sugar Bowl. Georgia had 8 players that were regulars opt out or be hurt for the game, and still found a way to win it, and really won it handily against Baylor. So congratulations to Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs. And what about Kentucky? Kentucky came from off the mat, beat Virginia Tech. Lynn Bowden, maybe the story of the year in the SEC that a lot of people don't even realize. This guy was a wide receiver all year. Kentucky lost all their quarterbacks. All Bowden did in the last 4 or 5 games was rush for almost 1,000 yards. He had 224 again in the bowl game for Kentucky, and actually threw the winning touchdown pass to beat Virginia Tech. So a great win for Kentucky. On the downside, Mississippi State. Come on, man. You lost to Louisville. Louisville's horrible. Kentucky destroyed them in the last game of the year. Joe Moorhead, we've said it all year long, Joe Moorhead is not the right guy for the job at Mississippi State. He won the Ole Miss game on a fluke and survived and still has his job. But Joe Moorhead and Mississippi State, what a major disappointment to fall on their face in that bowl game. Let's quickly, too, the championship game, as I mentioned, is a week from Monday. Some people actually complaining, well, why are they waiting a week for that, an extra week? It's a championship game, folks. Let them get ready to play, and I like the fact that we're getting some extra hype time for what should be an unbelievable game in New Orleans. Let me tell you, next week I'm going to have the all-star team on hand for that pregame show. We're going to have Terry Quillian and Herb Winches, and it's a show that you just do not want to miss. The line right now, LSU 5.5. That's up from the opening 3-point line. People love those Tigers playing the Tigers. Back with our final segment right after this. Welcome back, everybody. Talking sports. We're winding it down on this Saturday. Want to once again remind you that next Saturday is a can't-miss, must-see TV show. It'll be myself, it'll be the sports icon Herb Winches, and it'll be Terry Quillian, the First Lady of SEC football. We're going to have the whole cast on board to get you ready for Clemson and LSU. How wild is it going to be in New Orleans? That's going to be so much fun. A de facto home game for the Bayou Bengals as they try to knock Clemson off, the defending champion who's won 29 games in a row. You can't have a more compelling matchup. Joe Burrow, who wasn't good enough to start at Ohio State, leading the LSU Tigers, the Heisman Trophy winner. What a fantastic game it should be. And it's two teams from the South, Clemson and LSU, playing in the Superdome in the deep south of New Orleans, just as God intended it to be. Okay, we're going to switch gears here. And, well, first I need to tell you this segment is brought to you by M&M Electric. This is a great father-son operation. They can handle all of your residential or business needs in the power area. Don't try to do it yourself. Call the pros. They are great to work with. M&M Electric, another great sponsor here on Talking Sports. Let's switch gears to the National Football League because today we've got two matchups in the wild card round. Of course, you've got two teams in each conference, the American and National, that got byes for their outstanding work. The Baltimore Ravens and Kansas City Chiefs are chilling in the AFC. And over on the NFC side, the San Francisco 49ers and Green Bay Packers earned the first two spots. But let's take a look at the matchups today. First, you've got the resurgent Buffalo Bills. They are playing the Houston Texans down in Houston, and the Texans are a 3-point favorite. Deshaun Watson trying to get the Texans that elusive playoff win. Seems like they've been coming up short just about every year. Buffalo's a gritty, gutty team, though. I like the Bills and the points in this one. The next game this afternoon is closer to this evening, where you have the New England Patriots hosting the Tennessee Titans, who got a big burst of momentum at the end of the year. Ryan Tannehill has stepped in and been great at quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. Derrick Henry is an Alabama graduate who has just been phenomenal for the Titans. Their defense is solid. The Patriots only a 4.5-point favorite. Did you see how that happened last week? They lost to the Miami Dolphins at home with a chance to clinch a bye. I still think the Patriots will get it done here and dispatch the Titans at home. And then there's two NFC games tomorrow. The early game is the Minnesota Vikings, who are a very good team with Kirk Cousins at the controls. They'll be in New Orleans to play the Saints. The Saints are an 8-point favorite, by far the biggest on the board. I think it'll be a closer game than that. I like the Saints, but I do not want to give more than a touchdown. And in the nightcap, kind of a sketchy game because the Seattle Seahawks are all beat up, but they almost pulled off the miracle win against the 49ers last week. They will travel to chilly Philly and play the Eagles. The Eagles here are getting a 1.5. Both of these teams are very diminished from injuries. This one's a real toss-up. If I had to go one way or the other, I'm going to lean Philadelphia in here. That's all the time we have. It's been another great week on Talking Sports. A fabulous show coming up next week. You can always keep up to date on everything happening on Talking Sports at talkingsports.info. We are out of here. Kip Keefer, have a great week, everybody. See you next Saturday.